His presentation is titled Guyland, Addictive Culture and Authenticity at Kritik and Synthesis. Stephen is an undergraduate student at Minot State University, majoring in history education with concentrations in political science, sociology, and economics, with a minor in women and gender studies.
Okay, I want to first apologize to everyone that I am a little sick. I have stuffy nose and a cough, so excuse me if I cough and sniffle during this presentation. My body shows the worst time to get sick. And unfortunately, my co-author, Dr. Hoffman, couldn't make it today, so it's just me here, which is fine, which is okay. So let's get on with this. Okay, Guyland, Addictive Culture and Authenticity, a Critique and Synthesis. As you'll notice in the title, we spell critique, K-R-I-T-I-K. We do this on purpose because that's a German spelling for it. And that actually has a different connotation than the American spelling. When we in America use the word critique, we are generally talking about, and what we generally mean is that we are saying that this is wrong, this is bad. We're saying why this is wrong, why this is bad, what we're critiquing, what we're talking about. However, the German connotation is more of a question. When we use critique and use the German spelling for it, we're asking a question of, well, maybe this isn't the way it should be. Maybe this isn't the way it is. We ask why. We ask certain questions. So we do this different spelling on purpose. That's why it looks weird. That's why the title looks so weird. So we do this different spelling on purpose. So what does it really mean to be a man in today's society? What has it meant throughout time? We haven't really asked this question much. Although masculinity studies and gender studies have come a long way, we don't inherently ask the question of what it means to be a man. We ask what it means to be a woman. We ask women's experiences. We look at male privilege. We look at heterosexual privilege. We even look at masculinity itself. But we don't inherently ask the question what it means to be a man. Simone de Beauvoir, how she pronounces her name, asked this question, or told us this in her book Second Sex, when she tells us that a man would never set out to write a book on the particular situations of the human male. But I wish to find myself, and I must first say I am a woman. Me, on this truth must be based all further discussion. A man never begins by presenting himself as an individual of a certain sex. It goes without saying that he is a man. This speaks volume because we still do this throughout today's society. Someone also tells us later on in the book that the relationship between the sexes is not unlike electrical poles. For man represents both positive and neutral, and that is indicated in the common use of man as described in the human race. When we don't always say the human race. We say mankind. We use man just to describe everything as either positive or neutral, and thus women would be the negative. In this conceptual paper, the authors discuss the extent to which environment, culture, and redefined private sphere influence one's sense of self, sense of value, and sense of authenticity. Drawing upon the works of Dr. Michael Kimmel, Joseph Campbell, Friedrich Nietzsche, and Anne Wilson Schaef, the authors explored how recognition of self-limitation, culture addiction, and a perceived individual and social imperfections allow for the development of self-awareness. This is done by looking at major works from the authors mentioned above, which include but aren't limited to Kimball's Guyland, which is the main book we'll be critiquing, Joseph Campbell's The Hero with a Thousand Faces, Friedrich Nietzsche's Beyond Good and Evil, and theories presented by Anne Wilson Schaef, specifically for her book When Society Becomes a. So first we're going to go into a background of why we're using Kimball, and we're going to explain his book Guyland, because it's one of his most popular books that's come out in the last few years. And also, when people read it, we can really relate to this book, and the paper is questioning why that is. So Kimmel, he wrote this book called Guyland, and he tells us what Guyland is. Guyland is the space where boys from the ages of 16, 25, and now it's actually going on in their 30s, where they're just guys, and they don't want to be men. And what that does, as Kimmel tells us, does not help society in any way. It degrades society. Kimmel tells us that we need to teach our sons and daughters to be able to withstand the temptations of Guyland. We're asking the question why. Throughout this entire paper, we're wondering, why does Kimmel tell us this? Kimmel gives us examples of Guyland and how it's wrong, which we'll see soon. But we're still asking why. Why is this such a, quote, bad thing? Why does Kimmel tell us to be wary of Guyland? Kimmel tells us that young men have always wanted to prove themselves, and that's nothing new, which they do in Guyland through initiations such as hazing, binge drinking, hookup culture as we call it now. And Kimmel tells us that, but today the desire has a distinct tone of desperation to it. We're still, once again, the main crux of this whole thing is we're asking why. So Kimmel does go further on in Guyland. It says Guyland is volatile. Kimmel tells us that Guyland is a volatile stage where one has access to all the tools of adulthood with few of the moral and familial constraints to urge sober conformity. This brings us to our first critique, which we're going to use Friedrich Nietzsche's Beyond Good and Evil and also his book, The Genealogy of Morals. What we're doing with this is, well, we're going to show you why morals don't exist. We're going with Friedrich Nietzsche's views on morality, which he's a total moral nihilist, and that morals don't exist. And what we're going to do is expand this to show that nothing is truly real. It was all created at one point, and we've just accepted this creation, and we just go on with it. So Nietzsche tells us that they wanted to give a basis to morality, and every philosopher hitherto has believed that he has given a basis. Morality itself, however, has been regarded as something given. When we look into the past, as Nietzsche did, we can equate what he says about morality to the rest of the world. When we look at the first Greek philosopher on record, Thales, we see that a lot of his philosophies are what we use in science today. He philosophized that humans are mostly water, and now we accept that as a scientific fact. But back in the past, back in those times, science was philosophy. It was all just what people thought about the world, and now we've created ways to test what we want to believe. So we've agreed with them for so long that we agree with them. We create these ways to test scientific method, and now we do create new ways of testing science. Everything is a concept. The idea of masculinity, all the definitions of all the words we use, were created at some point in time. Nietzsche shows us the origins of morality, and I believe the origins of everything. Nietzsche tells us that now the first argument that comes to my hand is that the real homestead of the concept good did not originate among those whom goodness was shown. Much rather, it had been the good themselves, that is, the aristocratic, the powerful, the high stationed, the high-minded, who have felt that they themselves were good, that is to say, the first order. In contradistinction to all the low-minded, the vulgar, and the plebeian. They first arrogate the right to create values for their own profit and to coin the terms and names for such values. I think it shows us the dominant, the powerful, a term used later on in this book, the masters, created the valuation of the values good and evil. History has shown us that there has always been something or someone powerful ruling over someone who's not, imposing their own values, imposing their own morals, imposing their own judgment upon the people that they rule over. This has not changed today, and it's been this way forever. Nietzsche shows just by looking at the origins of language, that the meaning of words, specifically German and Greek. Nietzsche tells us that the master's right to giving names goes so far that it is permissible to look upon language itself as the expression of the power of the masters. They say this is that and that. They seal finally every object and every event with a sound, and thereby at the same time take possession of it. It is because of this, the origins of the word good is far from having any altruistic acts. When we use the terms good and evil, when we use the terms right and wrong, we're going with a morality that isn't inherently our own. It has been set upon us for so long that we have come to agree with it. Nietzsche discovered this. Nietzsche realized it so long ago, and yet we still use these valuations. We still go along with this. And why? Because we don't want to accept that what we believe isn't actually our own thoughts, isn't actually what we believe. It's been put upon us for so long that we've just accepted it. Under the Nietzsche paradigm, we see that we cannot use terms good and evil to place judgments on anything because they are not true and tangible concepts. And it's like Guyland does not produce real men like Kimmel does. it is inaccurate because there's no tangible definition of what a real man is. It just changed so much throughout time, and because of whatever hegemonic masculine or hegemonic male figure that is viewed throughout that time, it's changed. So there's no way to actually say what a real man is. Kimmel does give us a definition, an archaic one at best, and Kimmel's definition is the 5 classic demographic markers, which is education, marriage, parenthood, career, and residential independence, which he tells us have not simply skipped over the past generation. So Kimmel's telling us that these definitions still apply today. However, using these definitions, we can't today because we've already gone over this for the 1950s when Betty Friedan wrote her book, The Feminine Mystique, where she discussed the problem with no name, and that was the problem, was that women at that time, they had to be women, and that meant having a family, living in a home, and having kids, and being basically more or less subservient to their husbands. We've gone through this before with women. Now it's male's turn. Now it's men's turns to now it's the men's turns to realize that we can't have these 5 classic markers of adulthood to be a male because that's not the way it is anymore. We live so much longer that we can wait in order to become full males, or we need to discover that, well, what does that actually mean? There's no real definition. It's all subjective, as Nietzsche tells us. Consequently, we are social creatures with need for affiliation. We haze, we binge drink, and we do have random hookups in Guyland. Kimmel tells us that this doesn't make us real men. Kimmel tells us that this doesn't help society at all. However, if we look to Joseph Campbell's The Hero with 1,000 Faces, he's a philosopher from the early 19th century. In this book that Campbell writes, he discusses the hero's journey. And the book is titled The Hero with 1,000 Faces because here is to represent all of humankind. However, because of the nature of this, I'm going to say all males, but it is to represent all of humankind. So Campbell doesn't get the hero name. He just discusses the hero. And because the hero's journey is about all of us. We all have our own hero's journey. It's all subjective for each of us. And Campbell writes it such that he makes it subjective. Campbell tells us that, if I can find where Campbell tells us something. Campbell tells us that the hero's journey is something that we all go through, and the story of the hero's journey teaches us how to travel safely and successfully through the challenges of life and to achieve our own highest unique potential. The hero is the potential of every human being to follow. There are 3 parts of the hero's journey. However, specifically for this part, we use one part, which is the part of initiation. During the initiation process, the hero encounters guardians, and the guardians are there to challenge the hero. As Campbell goes on to tell us in this book, that they are the gatekeepers to ensure that only the worthy embark on the journey. They test the strength and resolve of the hero, and in doing so, they test its commitment, fortress his strength, and build his stamina. The guardians prepare the hero for the journey. These challenges are whatever make the hero into the person he's supposed to be, to become better. Campbell does not only use philosophical concepts. He uses psychology and sociology to his benefit. Now, he does this for a number of reasons. One is that modern psychology and sociology stem from philosophy. Old school philosophers, if we look to what they were often called psychologists and sociologists. So Campbell uses these other theories and ideas to align with his philosophies. And Kimmel does as well, but not as successfully as we'll see. So Campbell points out psychoanalysts like Sigmund Freud, Carl Jung, William Steckel, and Otto Rank, who saw how myth taps into the human psyche. And Kimmel uses, this paper is a bit just unorganized in some places. Kimmel uses Sigmund Freud's Oedipus complex to show how boys need to get away from their mothers to become men. Kimmel does this. However, if we look at Campbell's hero's journey, Campbell uses the Oedipus complex too to show that men do need to get away from their mothers. Men do need to go and journey into a place unknown to become, or to embark on the hero's journey to answer the call that they will eventually get. And Kimmel and others were having to believe that hazing and everything involved in college party life are a detriment to society because they don't instill responsibility in boys. Kimmel tells us that the initiations in Guyland are so distorted that they cannot produce real men, sensible, sober, and responsible. Initiations in Guyland are about drinking, going along with the tide, going along with peer pressure, even though you know it's not right. And we're just questioning why. If we look to the hero's journey, we can see that everyone is on their own path. Everyone becomes what they're supposed to be in the end. Even Kimmel interviews former college partiers. Kimmel interviews people who were in fraternities and did all these things who are now successful. Kimmel shows that these people become something. So I don't understand. So it's hard to tell exactly why Kimmel's telling us that these initiations are so bad. So now, moving on from Kimmel and Campbell, let's look to how our culture is addictive. If we understand our society as a construct, and all of our experiences we can truly have are our own, we can see that society is addictive. Anne Wilson Schaef wrote in her book titled "When Society Becomes Addicted," she tells us that our society is the fact that the system we live in is an addictive one. It has all the characteristics and exhibits all the processes of the individual alcoholic or addict. It functions in precisely the same ways. One aspect of this addiction is to define everything. We have this need and this want to define every single situation in our lives. We just need and want to define what it means to be masculine, define what it means to be a man, to define everything that we go through in all of our situations. However, that's just feeding into our addiction. Schaef tells us to say that society is an addictive one does not condemn it. The most caring thing we can do is to not embrace the denial and to confront the disease. This is the only possibility the addict has to recover. We must realize that as we keep trying to define ourselves, we will not stop this addiction. This addiction inhibits us from being the people we truly can be. Because the hero's journey is subjective, we cannot know where it will take us and where one person's journey will lead versus another. However, this addiction can inhibit our journey. It can force the guardians to not be able to do what they need to do because we're so focused on defining everything. We're so focused on trying to figure out exactly where we belong, exactly what's going on in our society, exactly where we are. It can inhibit the guardians from helping us to get through the challenging part, to get through the journey and to get to the end. The process of addiction, our society is a process addiction, which Schaef defines as one that becomes hooked on a specific series of actions or interactions. And these actions or interactions are really the ones of us wanting to define ourselves. And to more or less wrap this up, we would assume that the question that we posed here today would have an answer. We would have an answer to what it actually means to become a male in today's society. This feeds into our addiction because we assume there is an answer. Through looking at the works of Friedrich Nietzsche, that everything is a construct, looking at the works of Joseph Campbell, with all of our experiences being our own, and that we're in an addictive society, and we need to realize that. What does it mean to be a male in today's society? Where does his critique actually finally come to an end? Is that, well, there is no answer. There's no tangible definition for what it means to be a male in today's society because it's ever changing. Everyone's experiences are so different that there is no tangible answer that we can have. Thank you.